My name is Victoria Hayes. I'm 30. At 7:47 p.m. on Saturday, November 18th, I stood in the middle of the Crown Restaurant on Madison Avenue and listened to my mother-in-law tell 32 guests that I was the reason her son's mistress needed therapy. "You work too much, Victoria." Margaret Lawson's voice carried across the entire private dining room. She was standing at the head of the table, one hand on her son's shoulder, the other gesturing at me like I was a disappointing stock portfolio. Daniel has been so lonely, so neglected. Is it any wonder he found comfort elsewhere? I was holding a $150,000 vintage Cartier brooch, my gift for her 65th birthday. I'd spent 3 weeks finding it through private estate sales. Comfort? My voice came out steady, professional. The same voice I used when billion-dollar M&A deals were falling apart at 3 a.m. Is that what we're calling the $320,000 Daniel embezzled from my personal accounts to lease an apartment for Sophia? The room went silent, completely silent. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop. Margaret's smile didn't waver. Embezzled is such an ugly word, darling. Daniel is your husband. What's yours is his. That's how marriage works. That's not how marriage works. That's how fraud works. I turned to look at my husband. Daniel was examining his wineglass like it held the secrets of the universe. "Tell them, Daniel. Tell everyone here how you opened a duplicate debit card on my checking account. How you've been transferring $4,200 every month for 3 years to Hudson Properties, LLC. Apartment 4B on West 83rd Street. Daniel's face went pale. Sophia Grant, sitting in my assigned seat, wearing a pink dress that cost $2,800 from my checking account, reached for his hand under the table. "You're being dramatic," Margaret said. She used that voice. The voice that meant I was a child throwing a tantrum, not a woman who'd just closed a $1.2 billion merger this week. "You always make everything about money. This is my birthday dinner, and you're making a scene." "I paid for this dinner," I said clearly. Every person in that room heard me. Margaret's sister Patricia, Daniel's cousin Robert, 30 relatives who'd spent years watching me fund their lifestyles. "I paid for this restaurant. The $847 non-refundable deposit I made 6 weeks ago. I paid for the flowers on this table, the champagne you're drinking, the $6,000 Hermes scarf sitting in that gold bag by your chair. Money doesn't buy you class, Victoria." Margaret's fingers tightened on her pearls. The pearls I'd bought her last Christmas for $8,500. "It never has." "No, but it buys you 3 years in a secret apartment with my husband's mistress." I looked directly at Sophia. "How's the furniture I paid for? The $5,100 from Cartier? The $47,000 my mother-in-law spent on designer handbags while living rent-free in my penthouse?" Sophia's face flushed red. Daniel finally looked up. "Vic, please, not here. Not like this." "Where then, Daniel? When?" My hands were completely steady. I'd negotiated with hedge fund managers and private equity sharks. I could handle this. "When would be a good time to discuss the fact that my seat at your mother's birthday dinner has been given to your mistress? The woman you've been funding with my money for 3 years and 7 months?" "You don't understand," Daniel started. "I understand perfectly." I walked to Margaret's chair, placed the Cartier brooch box on the table, opened it. The diamonds caught the light. Vintage 1920s, platinum setting, absolutely flawless. "Happy birthday, Margaret." Then I picked up the brooch, walked to the corner of the dining room where a decorative trash can sat near the server's station, and dropped it in. The clink of $150,000 hitting metal echoed in the silence. Margaret gasped. Actually gasped. That was a gift! Yes, for someone I thought deserved it. I turned back to face the room, 32 faces staring at me. Some shocked, some uncomfortable, some, like Patricia, looking like they'd just solved a puzzle they'd been working on for years. "Enjoy your dinner, everyone. I'm sure it'll be delicious. It cost $4,200. I know because I saw the invoice when I made the reservation. I walked toward the exit. Margaret's voice followed me. You can't just leave. We're family. I stopped, turned around one last time. Margaret, I've spent 8 years funding your life, your son's life, your son's mistress's life. I paid your mortgage for 3 years before you moved into my penthouse. I paid for your car, your credit card bills, your Mediterranean cruise that you told me was for medical expenses. I'm done being your family ATM. How dare you, how dare I? Something in my voice changed. Even I heard it. How dare I finally stop letting you steal from me? How dare I stand up for myself? How dare I refuse to fund my own humiliation? Daniel stood up. Victoria, if you walk out that door, what? You'll divorce me? Please, save me the trouble. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd loved at 22, the man I'd married at 23, the man who'd spent 8 years taking everything I offered and then stealing what I didn't. I already filed, Monday morning, 9:03 a.m. You'll be served on Tuesday. His jaw dropped. Actually dropped. Oh, and Daniel? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I changed the locks on the penthouse and canceled all your credit cards and froze our joint accounts. My lawyer is Patricia Cross. If you want to negotiate, have your attorney contact her. If you come near me or my property, I'll have you arrested for violating the restraining order I filed this afternoon. Margaret stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. You can't do this. I can. I did. I'm a global partner at one of the top investment banks in the world. I handle billion-dollar acquisitions before breakfast. Did you really think I couldn't figure out how to protect my own assets? Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and what time is it there. I walked out of the Crown at 7:58 p.m., 11 minutes after I'd arrived. Behind me, I could hear the chaos starting, voices rising, questions flying, Margaret's shrill denials cutting through it all. I didn't look back. Let me take you back 8 years to the day I met Daniel Lawson, because you need to understand how I got here. How a woman who can negotiate with billionaires ended up funding her husband's affair for 3 years without realizing it. I was 22, fresh out of Columbia with an economics degree and a job offer from Goldman Sachs. Associate level, $95,000, starting salary plus bonus. I felt invincible. I was having coffee at a place on West 79th Street, reviewing my offer letter for the 100th time, when this guy at the next table knocked over his entire latte. It splashed across my thesis notes. 2 years of work, ink running like tears down the pages. Oh my God. He looked genuinely horrified. These warm brown eyes went wide, and he pressed his hands to his face. I'm so sorry. Please let me buy you another coffee, or 12, however many it takes for you to not hate me forever. I didn't hate him. He was charming in that clumsy, self-deprecating way. Funny, sweet. He talked about his mother like she was a saint who'd raised him alone after his father left. He talked about photography like it was oxygen. He talked about art and beauty and capturing moments that mattered. I just need time to build my portfolio, he said over our third coffee. His treat, he insisted, though I later realized I'd paid for everything else that day. Once I get my work seen, everything will fall into place. 3 months later, he proposed. Central Park, Bow Bridge at sunset. Down on one knee with a ring I later discovered cost $300 from a pawn shop on Amsterdam Avenue. Marry me, he said. Let me spend my life making you happy. I said yes. I believed him. His mother cried at our wedding. I thought they were happy tears. Looking back now, I think she was crying because she'd just secured her retirement plan. I bought the penthouse 2 months after we married. Upper East Side. 3 bedrooms, 2,000 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. $2.3 million. I'd just been promoted to vice president. My salary jumped to $240,000 base, plus annual bonuses that hit anywhere from $150,000 to $400,000, depending on deal flow. You don't have to do this, Daniel had said, but his eyes were already measuring the living room for his camera equipment. I want to, I told him. I meant it. I wanted to build something, a home, a family, a partnership. I was such an idiot. Margaret moved into our guest room that first Christmas. Just temporarily, Daniel explained when he told me, not asked, told, that his mother would be staying with us. She's having issues with her landlord, you understand, right? She raised me alone. I can't just abandon her. She was 60 years old, perfect health, played tennis 3 times a week at a club I later realized I was paying for. But I said yes. I always said yes. The problems started small, so small I almost missed them. Margaret would rearrange my kitchen cabinets. "This makes more sense," she'd say, moving my coffee to a shelf I couldn't reach without a step stool. She'd use my personal bathroom, leave her reading glasses on my desk in my home office, answer my phone when I was in meetings. "You're so lucky Daniel married someone successful," she told me one night. I was at my desk at 11 p.m., reviewing acquisition documents for a client meeting at 7 a.m. She stood in the doorway in her bathrobe, the silk one I'd bought her for Mother's Day, $340 from Bloomingdale's. "He could have married anyone, you know. That girl Sophia from his photography class absolutely worshipped him." I looked up from my laptop. My eyes were burning. I'd been working for 14 straight hours. "Sophia? Oh, just a friend." Margaret waved her hand. "Very sweet girl. Very thoughtful. Always asking about family traditions, what Daniel's favorite foods are, that sort of thing. She really cares about him, not like you, always working, never home." The words landed like little cuts, precise, surgical. I was too tired to bleed. "I have a client presentation tomorrow," I said. "I need to finish this." "Of course you do," Margaret smiled. "Daniel understands. He's always been so understanding about your priorities." Your priorities. Like the $8,100 mortgage payment I made every month. Like the Bentley Continental GT I'd bought Daniel for his 28th birthday, $235,000, because he said he needed reliable transportation for his photography shoots. Like the Porsche 911 I'd bought him the next year when he said the Bentley wasn't his style. $157,000. Like Margaret's credit card, an authorized user on my account, that showed monthly charges between $4,000 and $9,000 for Bergdorf Goodman, spa treatments, tennis lessons, dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of. I made partner when I was 27 years old, youngest female partner in my firm's history. The press release went out on March 3rd. My salary jumped to $850,000 base. Bonuses started at 7 figures. The Financial Times ran a profile. Rising star in investment banking. Victoria Hayes breaks barriers at 27. Daniel's response when I told him, "That's amazing, babe. Hey, can you look at the Amex bill? Mom said something about fraud charges, but I think she just forgot to tell us about some purchases." The fraud charges were $6,200 at Tiffany & Company. Margaret had bought herself a bracelet. I paid the bill. I always paid the bill. 3 years into my marriage, I started noticing charges I didn't recognize. Small ones at first. $47 at a restaurant in Brooklyn I'd never been to, $125 at a boutique on Amsterdam Avenue, then bigger ones. $890 at Whole Foods. We didn't spend that much on groceries in a month. $1,200 at Sephora. $2,400 to something called Hudson Properties LLC. I called my bank on April 16th. "That charge was made with your debit card," they told me. "In-person transaction, 2:14 p.m. on April 15th. I'd been in Chicago on April 15th, meeting with a manufacturing client. I had the flight records, the hotel receipt, The signed deal memo with my client's CFO's signature timestamped at 2:47 p.m. Central Time. I checked my wallet. My debit card was there, right where it always was. Someone had made a duplicate. I didn't say anything, not yet. I started keeping a separate spreadsheet. Every suspicious charge, every weird withdrawal, every transaction that appeared on days I was traveling for work. The pattern became clear fast. April 15th, $4,200 to Hudson Properties, LLC. April 22nd, $1,800 at Bergdorf Goodman. April 29th, $3,100 to Hudson Properties, LLC. May 6th, $2,950 at Nobu. May 13th, $4,200 to Hudson Properties, LLC. May 20th, $5,100 at Cartier. May 27th, $4,200 to Hudson Properties, LLC. Hudson Properties appeared on the 1st and 15th of every month like clockwork. $4,200 each time. That's $8,400 monthly. $100,800 annually. Someone was leasing an apartment with my money. I said nothing. I documented everything. I worked 16-hour days and came home to a husband who couldn't look me in the eye and a mother-in-law who told me I should smile more. I was promoted to Global Partner Asia Pacific on June 8th. The position came with $3.2 million annual salary. Bonus structure that could add another $2 to $5 million depending on regional deal flow. Oversight of 12 offices across Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai. Based in New York but traveling twice a month. That night, Daniel opened a bottle of champagne, Dom Perignon, $800 according to the receipt I found 3 days later. Purchased with my American Express. To my brilliant wife, he said, raising his glass. His smile looked practiced, rehearsed. Margaret was less subtle. Asia Pacific sounds like a lot of travel. Daniel needs stability, Victoria. He needs a wife who's present, a partner, not a paycheck. I stared at her across the table, at the woman who'd lived in my home for free for 3 years, who'd charged $47,000 to my credit cards, who'd never once said thank you. I am present, I said. My voice sounded far away. I pay the mortgage, the utilities, the car insurance, the property taxes, your credit card bills, Daniel's credit card bills. I'm very present in my bank account. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Money isn't everything, dear. No, I agreed, but it's something. And right now, it's the only thing I seem to provide that anyone in this family values. Daniel touched my hand. Babe, don't be like that. We're celebrating. Are we? I pulled my hand away. What exactly are we celebrating, Daniel? My promotion? Or the fact that my new salary means you can keep finding yourself for another 5 years? He flinched. Good. I went to my office, locked the door, updated my spreadsheet. By September, I'd tracked $83,000 in unauthorized charges. By November, it was $127,000. Hudson Properties, LLC appeared like clockwork. $4,200 on the 1st, $4,200 on the 15th. Never missed. Never late. I hired a private investigator on October 2nd. His name was Marcus Chen, former FBI. Discreet. Professional. I need you to find out who's living at an apartment leased by Hudson Properties, LLC, I told him. West 83rd Street. The payments are coming from my account. I need to know who's benefiting. His report arrived November 10th. Sealed envelope, marked confidential. The apartment was 1 bedroom, renovated, hardwood floors, $4,200 per month. Lease signed May 1st, 3 years ago. Leaseholder, Daniel Lawson. Emergency contact, Margaret Lawson. Current resident, Sophia Grant. Age 24. Unemployed. Previously worked as a photography assistant. The report included photographs, Time-stamped. Dated. October 18th, 9:15 a.m. Daniel leaving the building carrying coffee cups. October 18th, 9:47 a.m. Sophia leaving the building wearing Daniel's Columbia sweatshirt. My Columbia sweatshirt. The one I'd given him. October 18th, 3:30 p.m. Daniel returning with grocery bags from Whole Foods. October 18th, 8:22 p.m. Both visible through the window. Sophia laughing. Daniel's arm around her waist. There were bank statements too. Marcus had connections. I didn't ask how he got them. A checking account in Daniel's name only, funded by transfers from our joint account. My account, legally, since I'd opened it before marriage and only added him later. $320,000 over 3 years and 7 months. I sat on the floor of my office and stared at that number for 23 minutes. $320,000. I'd closed a $2.8 billion acquisition last month. I'd negotiated a $947 million merger in August. I could read a 400-page contract and spot every liability clause. I could value companies down to the decimal point. But I couldn't see that my husband had been stealing from me for 3 years. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat on that floor, Marcus Chen's report spread around me like evidence at a crime scene, and I felt something inside me go very, very quiet. Then I called Patricia Cross, best divorce attorney in New York. She'd handled 3 Goldman executives and a hedge fund CEO. I need to meet with you, I said. Tomorrow morning, first thing, and I need a forensic accountant. What's the situation? Embezzlement, fraud, adultery, asset concealment. Take your pick. Bring everything, Patricia said. Documents, bank statements, photos, recordings, anything you have. I'll have a forensic accountant waiting. I brought everything. The next day, November 11th, 9 a.m., I walked into Patricia Cross's office with 2 bankers' boxes full of evidence. Bank statements going back 4 years. Credit card statements with charges highlighted in yellow. The lease for West 83rd Street. Marcus Chen's full investigative report. Security footage from our building showing Daniel leaving with suitcases on dates I'd been traveling. Dashcam footage from the Bentley. I'd installed cameras after my car was keyed last September, showing Daniel and Sophia kissing in the front seat at 2:14 a.m. on October 3rd. Patricia looked through it for 47 minutes without saying a word. The forensic accountant, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus, ran calculations on her laptop. Finally, Patricia looked up. This is the cleanest fraud case I've seen in 6 years. He has nothing. No job, no assets in his name, no defense. You have everything. What about Margaret? She's listed as an authorized user, but these charges... Patricia tapped $47,000 worth of designer purchases. These exceed reasonable household expenses. We can pursue civil and criminal charges if you want. I want my apartment back, my cars, every dollar, and I want them out of my life. Consider it done. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. I had a plan. Margaret's 65th birthday was coming up. November 18th. She'd been planning it for months. Nothing too fancy, she'd said. Just family. The Crown has a lovely private room. I made the reservation. I paid the $847 deposit. I bought the $6,000 Hermes scarf and spent 3 weeks finding that vintage Cartier brooch through private estate sales. And on November 18th at 7:47 p.m., I walked into the Crown and found Sophia Grant sitting in my seat. Which brings us back to now. To me walking out of that restaurant. To Margaret's voice chasing me down the hallway. To 32 witnesses watching my marriage implode in real time. I sat in my Bentley in the parking garage for 6 minutes. Then I drove to my lawyer's office. Patricia was waiting. We'd planned this. All of it. How did it go? She asked. Perfectly, I said. They have no idea what's coming. We filed on Monday, November 20th at 9:03 a.m. Divorce petition. Asset freeze. Restraining order. Fraud investigation request. Police report for identity theft and wire fraud. Daniel received the papers at 2:47 p.m. He was at Sophia's apartment. The process server took photographs of him answering the door. He called me 17 times in 3 hours. I didn't answer. Margaret called from the penthouse landline at 6:32 p.m. Victoria, this is absolutely ridiculous. You're throwing away your marriage over a seating arrangement? Over a misunderstanding? I'm not throwing away anything, I said. My voice was calm. So calm. I'm cutting my losses. You and Daniel stole $320,000 from me over 3 years. You embezzled from my personal accounts. You leased an apartment for his mistress. Your name is on the lease as the emergency contact, Margaret. Your credit card paid for the furniture. You're not innocent. You're an accessory. Silence. Long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. Then, you can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. I have bank statements, lease documents with your signature, security footage, phone records showing 847 calls between Daniel and Sophia over 18 months, text messages where you told Daniel which days I'd be traveling so Sophia could use the Bentley. Shall I go on? More silence. You should get a lawyer, I said. Not Patricia Cross, though. She's representing me. And Margaret? I changed the locks. You have 24 hours to remove your belongings from my penthouse. After that, anything left behind becomes my property. The movers will be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. Don't be late. I hung up. The next morning, building security called. Ms. Hayes, your husband and his mother are here requesting access to the penthouse. They say they live here. They don't. Not anymore. If they don't leave in 5 minutes, call the police. They left. Work became my sanctuary. I buried myself in a $2.8 billion acquisition, spent 18-hour days in conference rooms, coordinated between time zones. My assistant Rachel brought me coffee at midnight. You're allowed to take breaks, she said gently. I'll take breaks when I'm ready. Are you okay? I looked up at her. This 26-year-old woman who'd worked for me for 2 years, who'd never asked for anything except the opportunity to learn, who'd stayed late without complaint and early without being asked. I will be, I said. Eventually. The acquisition closed on December 1st. $4.7 million bonus. I donated $1 million to Columbia's scholarship fund for women in business. Put another $2 million in investment accounts Daniel had never known existed. Kept the rest liquid in case I needed it for legal fees. Patricia called on December 3rd. He's countering. Wants spousal support. Claims you pressured him to stay unemployed. Says you were controlling and he was financially dependent. I actually laughed. I have emails from him turning down 6 different job offers over the last 3 years. Text messages where he calls working soul-crushing and says he needs to honor his artistic journey. I have a spreadsheet of every employment opportunity I found for him. Photographer positions, gallery jobs, teaching gigs, with his responses refusing each one. Send me everything. I sent everything. The preliminary hearing was January 12th, Judge Maria Castellano presiding. I walked into that courtroom in a $3,200 Max Mara suit, navy, professional, every inch the global partner I was. Daniel showed up in a $3,000 Tom Ford suit I'd bought him 2 Christmases ago. Margaret sat in the gallery wearing my pearls and a black dress from Saks that cost $1,200, both purchased with my money. Patricia presented evidence. Forensic accountant testimony, bank statements showing every fraudulent charge, the lease with Margaret's signature, security footage, phone records, text messages, dashboard camera footage showing Daniel and Sophia together. Daniel's lawyer, some kid fresh out of law school named Robert Morrison who looked about 12 years old, tried to argue that the money was marital property, that Daniel had every right to spend it, that my excessive work schedule had driven him to seek comfort elsewhere. Judge Castellano looked at him over her reading glasses. Counsel, Are you seriously arguing that your client had the right to secretly lease an apartment for his extramarital affair using funds from his wife's personal accounts? I'm arguing that New York is an equitable distribution state, Your Honor, and I know what state we're in, Mr. Morrison. I also know fraud when I see it. She turned to me. Miss Hayes, I'm granting your restraining order. Mr. Lawson and Mrs. Lawson are prohibited from contacting you directly or indirectly, approaching your residence, or accessing any financial accounts with your name on them. The temporary asset freeze remains in effect. We'll reconvene for final hearing in 90 days. Outside the courthouse, Margaret tried to approach me. Patricia stepped between us immediately. Victoria! Margaret's voice was shrill, desperate. Please, let's talk about this like adults. I kept walking. You're destroying this family over money, over a misunderstanding. I stopped, turned around. Margaret looked smaller somehow, older. Her hair wasn't as perfect as usual. Her makeup looked rushed. Margaret, I said quietly, I have 3 years of bank records showing systematic theft. I have lease documents with your signature on them. I have security footage showing you giving Daniel instructions about when I'd be traveling. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is premeditated fraud, and you knew exactly what you were doing. Daniel loves you. Daniel loves my bank account. There's a difference. I looked at her, really looked at her. Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I always just a resource to you? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Her face said everything. That's what I thought, I said. A reporter from the New York Post caught me at my car. Ms. Hayes, is it true your husband was embezzling from you? No comment, Patricia said sharply. But the story ran anyway. Small piece on page 11. Banking executive files fraud charges against husband and mother-in-law. My phone exploded. Colleagues calling to offer support. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years sending texts. My father called from Arizona. I never liked that boy, he said. Or his mother. You could have mentioned that before I married him, Dad. Would you have listened? Probably not. No. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you now, for standing up for yourself. I started therapy. Dr. Ellen Kaufman, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Tell me how you're feeling, she said in our first session. I feel stupid. I negotiate billion-dollar deals. I should have seen this coming. Did you have evidence? Not at first. And when you found evidence, what did you do? I investigated. I documented. I prepared. Then you weren't stupid. You were methodical. There's a difference. It took me 4 sessions to cry. When I finally did, I couldn't stop for 20 minutes. The final divorce hearing was February 3rd. Judge Castellano had reviewed all the evidence. Daniel's lawyer tried one last time to argue for equitable distribution. The judge shut him down. Mr. Morrison, your client committed fraud. He embezzled over $300,000. He maintained a secret apartment for 3 years. His mother actively participated in this deception. I'm not rewarding that behavior. She turned to me. Ms. Hayes, you are awarded full ownership of the penthouse, both vehicles, and full reimbursement of all documented embezzled funds, totaling $320,000, plus court costs and legal fees. Mr. Lawson, you have 30 days to vacate any property owned by Miss Hayes. Any assets purchased with her funds remain her property. Any debts in your name are your responsibility. This marriage is dissolved effective immediately. Permanent restraining order granted. Daniel's face went white. But where will I? That's not my concern, Mr. Lawson. You should have considered housing before committing felony fraud. Judge Castellano closed her folder. We're done here. I walked out of that courtroom at 3:47 p.m. free, single, vindicated. Patricia shook my hand. Congratulations, clean break, no spousal support, no ongoing obligations. You're done with them. I should have felt triumphant. I just felt exhausted. But Margaret still wasn't done. She tried to throw herself another birthday party in March. Same restaurant. Told them I'd be paying. I called and canceled it. She tried again at a different restaurant. I canceled that too. By the third attempt, the maitre d' at the Crown called me directly. Ms. Hayes, Mrs. Lawson is insisting you'll cover her event. Should we? Absolutely not. Ban her from making reservations under my name. I'll provide written notice. I sent a letter. Legal letterhead. Patricia's signature. Victoria Hayes will not be responsible for any charges, reservations, or financial obligations related to Margaret Lawson or Daniel Lawson. Any attempts to charge Ms. Hayes's accounts will be prosecuted as fraud. Margaret called from a blocked number. I picked up because I was curious. You're destroying my son's life. Your son destroyed his own life. I just stopped funding it. He has nothing. No home, no money. He has exactly what he earned, which is nothing. I kept my voice calm. Margaret, I paid your way for 3 years. I paid Daniel's way for 8 years. I paid for Sophia's apartment for 3 years. I'm done. Move on. You're heartless. No, I'm just not your victim anymore. There's a difference. I hung up. Criminal charges came next. Turns out Daniel had tried the same scheme on someone else, another woman, an attorney named Jessica Rodriguez. He'd moved in with her in July, convinced her to add him to her checking account. She caught him 3 months later. $22,000 gone. She filed a police report. Detective Sarah Morrison called me in September. Ms. Hayes, we're building a fraud case against Daniel Lawson and Margaret Lawson. Your divorce records show a clear pattern. Would you be willing to testify? Absolutely. The trial was in May. I gave a deposition but didn't attend. Patricia called when the verdict came in. Guilty on all counts. Daniel got 18 months in prison. Margaret got 12 months suspended sentence plus 3 years probation. Good. How are you feeling? I thought about it. Lighter, like I finally put down something I've been carrying for 8 years. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, deliberately, carefully. I bought a house in the Hamptons, cash purchase, $1.9 million, just for me. My name only on the deed. I could walk to the beach in 7 minutes. I adopted a cat, Gray Tabby, from a shelter in Brooklyn. I named her Sterling because I'm still a finance person at heart. She slept on my pillow and knocked my coffee off my desk every morning. I loved her completely. I dated Marcus, a venture capitalist with kind eyes and no interest in my bank account. Jennifer, a cardiac surgeon who understood 16-hour workdays. Neither relationship turned serious. That was okay. I wasn't looking for someone to complete me. I was already complete. My father visited in December. We had dinner at a steakhouse in Midtown. Prime rib, good wine, better company. You look different, he said. Different how? Happy, really happy. Not that fake smile you used to wear at family dinners. He was right. I'd stopped performing happiness, started actually living it. I'm good, Dad, I said. Better than good. I'm free. I got promoted again. Senior global partner, $4.8 million base salary, equity stake in the firm, my name on the letterhead. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile. Victoria Hayes, banking's newest power player. They mentioned the divorce in passing, recently ended an 8-year marriage, but focused on the deals, the mergers, the trajectory. A year after the divorce, 14 months actually, I took a real vacation, first one in 10 years, 2 weeks in Kyoto, traditional ryokan, bamboo forests, temples that had stood for centuries. On my last day, I sat by a koi pond at Kinkakuji. The golden pavilion reflected perfectly in still water. Tourists moved around me with cameras and excitement. I thought about Margaret's voice at that birthday dinner. You're being dramatic. You always make everything about you. No, I thought. I finally made something about me, and that's exactly what I should have done. I flew home on a Wednesday. Back to work Thursday. Rachel had coffee waiting and a stack of deal memos. "How was Japan?" she asked. "Quiet," I said. "Exactly what I needed." "You look rested." "I feel rested. For the first time in 8 years." She smiled. "Welcome back, boss." I built a different life after that. One where I wasn't apologizing for my success. Where I wasn't funding other people's dreams while neglecting my own. Where I could sit in my penthouse at midnight and feel peace instead of dread. Sterling curled up on my lap. City lights stretched out like scattered diamonds. Everything in this space was mine. Chosen by me. Paid for by me. Enjoyed by me. Sometimes you don't need revenge. You just need to stop letting people use you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and build something better. Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving. It's realizing how long you stayed. If you're watching this and you've ever been the person who paid for everything, the house, the car, the lifestyle, the dreams, while being told you weren't doing enough, type, "I paid for everything" in the comments. Or if you've ever been called selfish for finally choosing yourself, type, "I chose me." Both are valid. Both are powerful. Both mean you survived something that could have destroyed you. The last time I thought about Daniel and Margaret was this past March 11th. It would have been Margaret's 66th birthday. Facebook reminded me. I still hadn't bothered to unfriend her. There was no party that year, no restaurant, no vintage Cartier brooch thrown in the trash. I spent that evening at home, Sterling in my lap, glass of wine from a bottle I bought because I liked it, not because someone else told me to. City lights glowing through windows in an apartment that was entirely, completely, undeniably mine. Sometimes you don't need the last word. Sometimes you just need to stop giving them your words, your money, your time, your life. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. And sometimes the victory isn't in proving them wrong. It's in building a life so good that you forget to care what they think about it. I forgot. Completely. And that's how I knew I'd won.